Hello and welcome to episode 267 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. This week, a local First Nation is handing out air scrubbers for people's homes because wildfire pollution is so common now. No word on if they're handing out brain scrubbers after people accidentally turn on Fox News.
A new study reveals that grid storage batteries are now so cheap they make solar power a truly affordable 24/7 energy supply. Now, can someone please invent a phone that has a solar panel on the back? I have an HP solar calculator from the 80s that still works.
You're kidding, really?
Still works.
I thought solar didn't work, Brian. The governor of New York has proposed the state's utility build a nuclear power plant. The first in decades. It's been longer than the time since I last touched my toes.
Ireland has shut down their last remaining coal power plant. The bad news? The coal plant has been converted to burning oil. The good news? The coal will now be used to go in the Christmas stockings of energy executives until they fully clean up their act.
All that and more on this edition of the Clean Energy Show. And welcome to summer, people. It's officially our kickoff to our summer schedule where I wear shorts and on the show, maybe the shows are a little shorter.
Yeah.
A little more casual. Maybe you're at the beach when you're listening to it. Who knows? I don't know.
Still not hot, though. Like, I find myself, I'm still wearing some of my winter wardrobe, which is a little bit frustrating. We've had,
down to 5 degrees last night. 5 degrees.
5 degrees. We've had some hot spells, but this is a chilly, chilly summer so far.
That's 5 degrees Celsius, Americans. It wasn't that cold, but yeah, 40s. So you're off to London, England.
Where there is a massive heat wave going on right now. It is above 30, and we'll see.
Yeah.
But, at least I guess it's better than it being cold and rainy, which is what you might expect from a visit to London. But, we'll see.
Well, we sit here on the cusp of July, and my pool is not even open yet.
Yeah.
It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Growing algae because of the smoky skies.
So you have this above ground pool in your backyard, and you heat it with solar panels. Solar thermal.
Yeah. So the sun, the water goes through this black rubber mat. It's about 20 feet long and by 10 feet, which is quite a bit, and on this rack, and wow, it's not heating up because the skies have been either cloudy or smoky.
Yeah, that's the perfect indication, because sometimes it's hard to quantify because, I don't keep a diary every day of what the weather is like, but the fact that your pool is still not open at the end of June, that's a definite indicator that this has been a chilly spring and summer.
And last year, it was well into July. And if it happens 2 years in a row, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm spending money renting that pump. 1,000 watts on the 1 horsepower pump. Circulate the water. Got to circulate the water every day for at least a few hours. And chemicals. And, it's just an algae cesspool now. It's growing on the bottom and I have to get in there.
Really?
I have to get in there and scrape it all off with a algae brush and then get it into the water and then shock it with all kinds of chlorine and then circulate it out, filter it out, and then go into the pool and enjoy a few days.
Well, this reminds me when I used to make a backyard ice rink. I haven't done it for about 10 years, but I used to make a rink in the backyard for the kids to skate on in the wintertime. But after a few years of doing it, I found that, some years the amount of work required was just insane. It just sort of depended on how much snowfall and what the temperatures were like. But, it seemed like there were some years where I did, 100 hours of shoveling for about, 2 hours worth of skating.
I used to open it up in May, late May, maybe, but May. It's just the world is changing and I don't like it.
Yeah, and this is after a very, very cold winter that we had. So, who knows what this coming winter is going to hold. So anyway, a few months ago on the show, we talked about Viking Cruise Lines because they were going to launch the world's first hydrogen-powered cruise ship. Cruise ships are notoriously polluting vehicles. They tend to run on diesel and, they're just not that efficient. It's like a floating city that runs on diesel, so they've never been particularly good for the environment or good for emissions. But hydrogen, this is one of the possible use cases for hydrogen. For passenger cars and smaller things, it seems unlikely, but for larger items like cruise ships, anyway, it's now officially on the schedule. I found it on the Viking Cruise Lines website, and you can book a trip for the maiden voyage of the Viking Libra, which is their hydrogen-powered cruise ship. And of course, they have to source the hydrogen it's got to be green hydrogen for it to be a truly zero-emissions cruise ship. So hopefully they're doing that. But yeah, you can actually book it December 3rd, 2026. So you can look on the Viking Cruise website. It's the Viking Libra ship if you want to book. And now it turns out it only costs $25 to book a spot. Because it's so far in the future, you don't have to put any money down now except for $25. So I went ahead and booked a spot on the Viking Libra cruise ship. But I have about a year to decide if I actually want to go. It'd be obviously good material for the podcast, but I'm not totally convinced I want to fly halfway around the world for material for the podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking, I was going to ask you if you were contemplating it, and then I thought, hydrogen initial voyage, I don't know, it feels Titanic-y, it feels Hindenburg-y, it feels...
Yeah.
But again, good content for the podcast.
Good content. I mean, especially if it goes down, I guess. But yeah, it's a modest-sized cruise, and I've never been on a cruise before, so I wouldn't really have anything to compare it to, but it's Athens to Athens is the cruise. So it's mostly around Greece. There's one stop in Turkey, and then the rest are at ports in Greece. So it's not a super long voyage, but they probably wanted to start with something easy as the maiden voyage.
You know, we should have a clean energy show voyage. You know how some organizations get everybody together to go on a cruise?
On a cruise ship, yeah.
We should all go on the cruise. Our listeners should all join us. We'll record a show or two and get drunk.
Yeah, the Clean Energy Show cruise. I think we should start working on that.
Yeah. Send in your thoughts, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. So, Brian, there was a Pride Parade up in our sister city in Saskatoon. And I remember I missed the Pride Parade this year in our city because it wasn't well publicized, or at least it didn't reach me. And my daughter was kind of busy with finals, so the timing didn't work out. But I was complaining last year when I went to it about all the exhaust from the diesel and how, because they're moving it literally like a turtle's pace, because everything goes so slow. You have to breathe this. I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if everything was electric? Well, the Pride Parade at Saskatoon, they were using their city bus, which is now electric. So that was one of the floats, and at least it's a start. I don't know how many other electric vehicles there were. But yeah, parades will improve and be more pleasant as they electrify, and also quieter because there's a lot of noise from the diesel engines idling.
No, and we've talked about this before, and I saw electric vehicles at the Santa Claus Parade in Toronto last year.
So an air update, since we are working on the Clean Energy Show air quality project, our listeners have fundraised a air quality monitor for me, and I'm studying the data now as we speak. I haven't had any terrible oil smells from the refinery, but my wife went to the grocery store, which is a few blocks south of us, and she said it's horrible here. So when we went out a bit later that evening, I drove and I hit it, it's amazing how it is a very specific area based on the wind. And it's, you can run into a wall of it when you're driving into the neighborhood sometimes. And it's just suddenly hits you and it's just horrible. But that's because it's carried by the wind. So I'm studying wind direction, and I wish I had a wind monitor, but they're like $150.
Yeah.
I used to have one. They're not that common. You can buy a weather station and they rarely have wind direction monitors on them.
You just need a weather vane, basically. But a weather vane that can give you the data.
That I don't have to look out my window for. But I came up with something else that's maybe even better. And it's the guy in Northwest Regina who has all this weather equipment. He had a link to the airport that the sort of a live weather report from the airport for aviation, which I didn't know about. There's this page you can go to and get the exact wind direction in degrees, because aviation uses degrees. 0 to 360. So, 180 is south. This is directly from the south and wind. So I've determined through Google Earth that the refinery is between 100 degrees upwind from me. A wind from them would be 100 degrees to 115 degrees. Because it's so close, there's a wide variation in degrees. So now when I do smell it, I can see what the exact direction is and get data like that. And what I wish, though, is I don't even know these exist, is like a smart weather vane that I could hook up to my smart system and would turn off a plug to my ventilation fan in my bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
So if the wind shifts, and it often does in the middle of the night, I wouldn't wake up to a room full of toxic neurotoxins and VOCs that are going to kill me. It would turn off when that happened. So that would be cool, because I really love my fresh air when it is fresh. I haven't noticed too much from the steel plant north of my city yet, but, this is early days, and it's going to go on for a while. There's lots of wildfire smoke in the area. I'm getting alerts now from my app that tell me when the air quality improves or goes down. So it's just a quiet alert. I'm not constantly getting annoyed, but I can see where it changes. And then I go and I look at the weather and see the wind. The wind direction, I can't say a southeast wind blows in pollution from the refinery. I can't say a south-southeast wind. It has to be very specific. It's kind of in between those two. And that's why this degree thing is kind of interesting to me anyway. So my son, you know how he has that old Honda Civic? Well, it finally died. It's it's getting towed away today.
Oh, no.
He's going to be very emotional about it because it was his first car, and he was really, really this is his happy place, is exploring, even if it's, not that far away, but he's had a great time with his car. He's had it for 4 years exactly. And, it considering he drove that thing on highways all the time to explore, it's done him well, because we paid very little from it off of a friend, and he's put relatively little into it, although unfortunately he had to put money into it recently and they just didn't fix it. So he overheated on the Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver and broke down, which was his worst nightmare. And I guess the bridge employees came out and put up a pylon and closed the lane. And he had a friend from his university town come in and staying with him. And so it was a big panic. He phoned me in a panic again. But I think this might be the last time, Brian. I think those calls are over. Like the last time he phoned me on Father's Day, he panicked. He was pretended that he had an emergency, because I'm so used to it that it's like a Pavlovian response. When I hear his ringtone, I think, oh, God, no, what now? But he got off that bridge before he called me. He poured some fluid in and got off, and then it just won't fix itself. The head gaskets are blown, and the liquid fix for it is not taking on a permanent basis, so the wrecker is towing it away. But, all these things that were wrong with his car were combustion engine things, they weren't... I know things can go wrong with electric cars. Yeah. But there's only like 3 things that can go wrong with an electric car. Yeah. Generally speaking. And people panic and think, well, the battery goes, that's thousands of dollars. But the batteries, usually the ones that are on the road now, at least, are made up of modules. So you replace the modules that are bad, not the whole battery necessarily.
Typically have an 8-year warranty.
Yeah. And that's great for most people to... By the way, once they make it through 8 years, it's pretty clear sailing, I would say, for a lot of people. I'm still driving, knock on wood, my 2013 Nissan Leaf.
Okay, from Electrek, a new report from global energy think tank Ember says batteries have officially hit the price point that lets solar power deliver affordable electricity almost every hour of the year in the sunniest parts of the world. So this is great news. This is about the cost of solar plus batteries getting low enough. The cost of batteries has really come down. Now, I've never been all that focused necessarily on the cost. Like, to me, solar, wind, and batteries, it's the best solution. So you should probably use it, even if it is not the cheapest thing. But this shows that it is definitely the cheapest thing in currently the sunniest parts of the world. And, gets better every year as the prices drop. So the study looked at hourly data from 12 cities and found that in sunny places like Las Vegas, you could pair 6 gigawatts of solar with 17 gigawatt hours of batteries, and then you get a 1 gigawatt of power nearly 24/7. It's sort of like 99% of the time. And for just $104 per megawatt hour, based on the recent prices for solar and batteries, that's 22% down from the previous year, and that's cheaper than new coal, which is $118 a megawatt hour, and nuclear, 182 megawatt hours in many regions. So not only is it cheaper, but, a lot faster than nuclear. And we're going to talk about nuclear in New York later on. But, given the complexity of other sources of power, I'm just confused as to why everybody isn't going solar, wind, and batteries all the time.
Yeah. And especially like the cities, some of the cities on there surprised me that did so well. Like, I think even the UK did fairly well on that.
Yeah. So, in a place like Las Vegas, you get that power for 99% of the hours in a year. But Birmingham in the UK, which of course is going to be a lot cloudier, less sunny, 62%. So that same kind of setup gives you power for 62% of the time, which is not bad in a cloudy place. And of course, you can just add more batteries if you want.
This is what's referred to as baseload. And it's the thing around here that we say we need baseload and solar's not baseload. Well, dummies.
Yeah.
There's something called batteries that expand that solar throughout many hours of the day, depending where you are. We're talking about keeping it under a certain price. This is possible almost anywhere short of the poles, right?
Yeah.
Where there's sometimes hardly any sunlight at all for part of the year. So as long as you have sunlight, it is theoretically possible to just build lots of solar panels and lots of batteries, but then it becomes very expensive to cover those cold, dark days of the year where it's less advantageous. But this is talking about keeping it at that certain price point, which is what? It's $118 per megawatt hour, something like that?
It's 104.
104. So nuclear is $182 in many regions, as you said. The hope, of course, is that we'll just start building nuclear all over the place and it'll come down in price, which we're kind of skeptical about. And of course, there's the issue of time.
Yeah.
I'm not against nuclear and I'm not against reviving old plants, but I think it's a mistake. And I especially get really worried here in Canada where our province and especially Ontario, which is definitely going ahead with this, is doing small modular, which is unproven at this point as far as cost is concerned. And one of the problems with nuclear is that there's overruns and unpredictable things because we haven't built very much of it in the Western world for many decades.
Yeah. So in 2024, the cost of batteries dropped 40% in just 1 year. So that meant that the storage costs were down by 22%. It doesn't mean your whole storage solution is going to be down by 40%. So they say 22%. But, hopefully these price drops continue and this just gets more attractive.
Well, that's another thing that frustrates me because people just don't realize these are not prices today. The prices will continue to go down. Now, they're hoping the same for nuclear, but that's not proven yet. I mean, you have to go gangbusters on nuclear. You have to use the same reactors. You have to train the people. And this takes decades. It can take a decade to build, to go from decision to building a nuclear plant. By the time you get local approval and regulations and all the red tape involved, and then you start building it, and then there's cost overruns because you haven't built one before, hardly. We'll see what happens in Georgia if they improve on their costs, but it's sketchy when you're spending that much money, Brian.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about New York later on, but, imagine how much battery prices are going to drop by the time that plant opens in New York. I mean, battery prices are already low, and they're just getting lower.
So we've been talking a lot about air quality on the show lately because we've been breathing it. And even our listener in Switzerland had to breathe our stinky, smoky air when he went on a hike a couple of weeks ago. Well, when we received our award recognition, we met a person from the Lac La Ronge Indian Band about 5-6 hours north of here. North, but not that north, kind of in the middle if you're looking at it on the map. But it's about as north as you can go if you're a regular person here and you want a highway to get there.
About as far north as the regular roads go here in our province.
They're suffering from wildfire smoke now, too. In fact, they've been suffering in it from a lot. So Tammy Cook-Searson, chief of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band, said people living in the north deal with wildfire smoke every summer now. And after wildfires in 2015 choked the province with smoke, she said the Indian Band invested in air scrubbers, which was a surprise to me. This is from CBC Saskatchewan, to help purify indoor air. Now, I've got an air purifier here that I paid a couple $100 for on a special clearance summer sale.
Yeah.
They're usually $300 or $400 for one because it has an air quality monitor in it. And I just got my new filters for it from Temu. I haven't opened it yet, but we'll see if they're legitimate or not. But
yeah,
and I noticed that the charcoal actually is for odors, but it's also for VOCs, and that's important for me if that VOCs from industry gets in my window, and I want that taken care of with those charcoal filters, but you have to change them more often. So, yeah, they've said enough. You know, they have to get people into facilities with clean air, and when this happens, because they can't stay in their homes because the air is so bad, or they have to evacuate.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, hey, well, let's buy these air scrubbers to help purify the air. This is different, though, than the air purifiers that I have. These are more serious equipment here that can cost $1,000, $1,500 or more, from what I could see, because there's a picture of one, and I did a Google search on the picture and found the webpage for selling them and how much they are and the different models there are. The scrubbers are installed at the Indian Band's 6 separate communities to provide fresh air shelters for residents who need to escape the smoked air, and they find them to be very effective, but they're also giving them out to people now. They're using the Predator 750 portable air scrubber with HEPA filter device manufactured by Abatement Technologies. One of them I found that was exactly like this was $1,100 US, which means it's probably $1,600, $1,700 Canadian on Amazon. But they're not easy to find for some reason. Maybe they're out of stock. But it is designed for restoring indoor air quality in various settings, including asbestos abatement, lead or mold decontamination, and general dust suppression. It features a unique double-wall polymer cabinet and designed for durability and exceptional airflow with a peak airflow of up to 750 cubic feet per minute.
This sounds like an ad reader. Are we getting sponsored?
We should be. We should be having these. We should take them on our cruise and give them out to people as prizes. It is a portable. I'm sorry. I'm amused by the whole idea of the Clean Energy Show cruise, going on a hydrogen cruise and then us all dying. But it is a portable and lightweight unit, weighed 35 pounds with the filters, and it uses user-friendly controls. This air scrubber uses a 3-step filtration. And last summer, Brian, a mother in Canada, lost her son to wildfire smoke-induced asthma. Or maybe it was a couple of summers ago. I remember this story vividly. We talked about it on the show. It was a situation in the interior of BC where the smoke was very bad. Her son had asthma, and they could not save him. And she started a charity in his name where it gives air quality monitors that Amazon builds. They started to build their own brand name air quality. Or no, IKEA. IKEA does this. IKEA has their own air quality monitors. They're relatively inexpensive, like $100 or so, relatively speaking. And she's been giving those out to families and holding seminars on how to build air purifiers with box fans and HEPA air filters. So they're basically furnace filters that are of the appropriate size for a big box fan, like a square 25 by 25 shape that you can go to your store and buy, as long as it has good HEPA air filtration in it. This could save a life. So if you have a person with bad asthma in your house, almost anywhere where you live, it might be worth getting one or building one. So they're building it with, wide masking tape and sort of taping it onto the back of the fan and having the airflow go in the right direction. And apparently this works. Yeah. Now, maybe you have a furnace. You can upgrade the filter on your furnace, perhaps. But I find when I run my furnace, I'm getting too much outdoor air. So I'm not sure if that's a benefit or not, but it just seems to work that way in this house. So it gives outdoor air quality monitors to families and holds seminars on how to build them. I've seen the seminars. There's kind of like a craft situation where they're all sitting around building them and giving them to people and then learning how to do it. Pretty simple. There's videos on YouTube and other places, of course. India, we've talked about India a lot, about the air quality there. It's often the worst in the world. It's the worst towards the end of the calendar year where the crops are getting burnt and the mountains and everything, the temperature inversions all add up, and there's construction as well as normal type of pollution from factories and cars and motorcycles. So indoor air quality in India is a serious health concern with levels of pollutants often exceeding outdoor levels, particularly in the urban centers. This is largely due to factors like cooking with solid fuels, construction, and the infiltration of the outdoor pollutions. Because, they don't have great sealed doors and windows in India. They're not Canada where we're keeping the cold out. And so the air gets in, and that's a bad thing. They use a lot of solid fuels like wood and coal for cooking in India, and it's a major source of the indoor air pollution. It is anywhere in the world where you're cooking with this stuff. And it's always great to see when people convert to electric, even in some of the poorest regions, because solar sometimes makes that possible. So, health impacts. Indoor air pollution is linked to a range of health problems, including respiratory illnesses like asthma, cardiovascular diseases, and even neurological disorders. So that's why we're thinking about air quality, because it's not going away.
Yeah, and of course, still planning to build a new cottage property, a new cottage out at our lake property. And that's one thing we haven't really dealt with yet is the HVAC system, but, very much thinking about how to put in proper air filtration so that, we can withstand possible smoke problems. All right, it is time to open the mailbag. Hey guys, if you wanted to nerd out and listen to an interview with the very energetic chief commercial officer who will try to convince you that their new tech built on old tech is going to bring fusion to a power producer near you far sooner than you might think, then listen to this podcast. I'm a fusion skeptic, but this sounds interesting. And this is from Mitchell. And there's a link to Latitude Media and a podcast about fusion power, which we've talked about before on the podcast, not coming anytime soon. But, again, it's a very complicated form of energy. And when you can just put up solar and batteries, I'm not sure why we need fusion.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen with fusion. If I had to predict, I would say it would be a ways off, because every day the alternatives get cheaper and easier and more experience with them. And it's solving the problem that we just talked about, that, you need baseload power, right? Well, it is possible to use renewables. I mean, it gets even better. We're just talking about solar earlier, solar and batteries, but you factor in the right amount of wind based on your region, and that reduces it even further. The idea is to mix wind and solar with batteries, and you reduce the amount of batteries you need as much as you can with the wind, depending on how much it blows in your region. And they have data for that year-round, decades of data of how much the wind blows, and they can study that. So this podcast in 2021, Commonwealth Fusion Systems achieved a major breakthrough by creating the world's most powerful magnet using a special semiconducting tape, leading to a $1.8 billion funding round. Now the company is working to commercialize the technology, with plans underway to build the world's first commercial fusion power plant in partnership with Dominion Energy in Virginia. So we'll see how that goes. We'll keep an eye on it.
Well, it's an irresistible technical problem. I can see why people want to solve it just from a, engineering and inventing standpoint. Like, this would be an amazing thing if they can do it. You're essentially creating endless power supply, but, good luck to them.
If you want to contact us, and I hope you do, maybe you'll want to go on that cruise with us, the Clean Energy Show Hydrogen Cruise Extravaganza 2026, as the world burns. Send us an email, because we have an email address that is cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, all one word. Easy to contact us. Most people do that, but you can also leave us a voicemail, and we love those. Speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow, a little place to leave us a voicemail from your computer or phone. Just click on it and record, and redo it if you don't like it. You can also join the conversation on our Patreon page. Leave us a message there or a comment, and we'll get to it right away. And, of course, there's additional content for those who support the show.
All right, now from Power Magazine, this is a real good news, bad news kind of story. This is from Ireland. Ireland is no longer burning coal to produce electricity after the country's last coal-fired unit was now converted to heavy fuel oil. So good news, bad news, no more coal, but they are still using heavy fuel oil.
That sounds bad.
Yeah. But then the good news again is they're going to try and use it sparingly, kind of use it when it's needed, and up until 2029 when it's scheduled for permanent closure as part of the country's plan to end fossil fuels for power generation. So far, at least 15 European countries have stopped burning coal, according to the Beyond Fossil Fuels group. Another 10 have committed to exiting coal by 2030. Ireland gets about a third of its electricity from renewable sources, mostly wind power. They have a large 17-megawatt onshore wind farm at Money Point in the same kind of location. The country primarily relies on natural gas for their power. They also import some electricity from the UK, and they're going to get more from France when a new interconnector starts up in 2026. So, not imminent, but at least they have a plan to exit fossil fuels in Ireland.
Okay. Well, heavy fuel makes me think of shipping, that they use sort of the dregs of the refinery for shipping, and that's very polluting, and they're trying to reduce that.
Yeah, but it's going to be kind of on standby and used when needed is the plan.
Well, that's just the thing. We talk about base load from solar that doesn't quite make it all the way. Well, sometimes you can keep those fossil plants burning for, maybe it's the 2 weeks in December that's cloudy and low sunlight or something like that if you're in the northern hemisphere, and just to keep it going. But we do want to get rid of all fossil fuels from the power grid as soon as possible, at least as soon as 2035 if we can. New York is planning a new nuclear plant as energy demand is surging. This is from Bloomberg. New York State is planning to build a nuclear power plant to meet growing demand from, data centers.
Really from everything.
All the rage, data centers, more so than EV charging, I would say, and other things. Governor Kathy Hochul is directing the New York Power Authority to develop and build at least 1 gigawatt of nuclear capacity. If you're going to go nuclear, go all out, man. Why 1 gigawatt? You should at least have 2, like a pair of gigawatt reactors or something like that, because that seems like a waste of money. You should just go crazy if you're going to go nuclear. The effort is driven by the growing need for electricity to develop those data centers and factories, and increasingly electrified homes like you, Brian Stockton, have a heat pump in your home and a couple of EVs and air conditioning now that you never had before. So you have power demands going up. You have even a stove that has replaced a gas-powered stove.
Yeah.
Not that that's a huge draw, but it's something. So the state will see rolling blackouts and other disruptions if they don't do something with that capacity increase. The project builds on state support for Constellation Energy Corp., which is seeking federal permit for a new project at one of its existing nuclear plants in New York, and marks a reversal for nuclear power in the state after the shutdown of the Indian Point nuclear plant in 2021. And the governor says the community around the 3 Mile Island plant likes nuclear power now, which has surprised me. She said surveys have shown that they're all for nuclear now, even though they had an existential crisis in the late 70s there.
Yes, and of course, safety is the other issue with nuclear. I wouldn't want to be responsible for a nuclear meltdown.
No, and of course, the new nuclear technology that's out there, like molten salt, is supposed to be safer and have automatic, passive safety, procedures that will just prevent meltdowns, which is encouraging, but we'll see how that turns out because we haven't built a full-fledged molten salt reactor yet. The effort builds on the state's support for Constellation Energy. That's the biggest U.S. reactor operator, which is seeking a federal permit, and Constellation is working to restart the shuttered 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor as well. Those are the people who are doing the 3 Mile Island restoration for Microsoft, just for Microsoft. It's going to be behind a fence, as we say in the power business.
Microsoft will buy the power if they can build it.
And they'll use it to power that paperclip on Microsoft Windows.
Clippy.
Well, he's dead. Rest in peace, Clippy.
What? Oh, no. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, so there's that issue again of near constant power is possible in many cities from that study that you had earlier. And just Las Vegas was 97%. Mexico City was 96%. South Africa, Johannesburg, 95%. This is amazing numbers that these places can have. India was at 89% in one city. Spain is in the high 80s, and you go down to Birmingham was 62%. Wuhan, China was 74%, and Washington, D.C. was 81%. That surprised me.
Yeah.
And I don't think of Washington as a solar, forward place, but yeah.
And these solar numbers are based on 1 gigawatt, which is what this nuclear plant is going to be.
Yeah. Exactly. Join our Patreon today as a paying member to get access to our exclusive Patreon episodes, one of which we are generously giving to the public next week, as Brian and I go for a drive. Spoiler, we do not die because we're still here, as far as I know. You can now support us for as little as $1 per month. Some of our perks include ad-free episodes, exclusive access to the Discord server, merchandise discounts, and early access to our episodes before the public, ad-free, as we say, and behind-the-scenes material and private updates, thank you credits on our video podcast, and shout-outs on our audio podcast. So thank you to all who support our show. Coming up next, the Lightning Round. It's time for the Lightning Round.
The Lightning Round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and transportation.
Mr. Stockton, the 2025 Escalade IQ is America's longest-range electric SUV. It's smashed its 460-mile estimated range in a recent actual real-world range test.
Wow.
And it's getting like 750 kilometers in real-world testing.
That's crazy.
So GM is kind of underdoing their EPA range estimates so people aren't disappointed. And I kind of like that approach. I appreciate that because people are not early adopters. They're not thinking about it. They just want to go use their car now. Texas just passed a law to require warning labels on food with potentially toxic additives. Incredibly, the law excludes all meat products and additives. So bleached flour will have a warning label, but chlorinated chicken and ractopamine-fed pork will not.
I'm a huge fan of ractopamine-fed pork.
Sure, it's tasty.
Sure.
You really look for that in your pork, don't you? It's time for a CES Fast Fact. The average total cost to own and operate an automobile in the United States has moved up to a record $12,296 per year. That's a 32% increase from the average cost just 5 years ago. So it is getting pricey.
Wow.
Pricey to own a car these days.
And that's US dollars as well.
And that cost is going higher and higher. And if you are thinking about an EV, factor in how much you drive per year. Start looking at your odometer. Write it down. A year from now, write it down again. And be aware of how much driving you do in a year. I do around 20,000 kilometers a year typically, maybe a bit less now. And so I know, and I know how much I can save.
Yeah.
You can write it down on a napkin and figure out how much you're going to spend charging at home. If you can charge at home, how much your power rate is. And it's pretty simple stuff. A shortfall in...
The more you drive, the cheaper it is to go electric. The more sense it makes to go electric.
Sure. A shortfall in gas power, not solar, led to the April blackouts in Spain and Portugal, official inquiries found. It's complicated, Brian, because I was going to have it on the show, and I've read multiple articles, and it's a bit over my head. It has to do with turning on gas plants to regulate the frequency of the power grid. We talked about frequencies a bit before, but when your frequency goes out of haywire, then your things start to trip. And I think those gas plants needed to be online, the fossil plants, in order to, and that was their plan, but they didn't do it because they didn't think they needed to do it. So they made the mistake, and it was a cascading effect of a horrible, horrible blackout that spread. The Yale Environment, you can read about that from them. Another one from Yale Environment, with global warming, there's been a surge in Arctic lightning. More lightning could spark more wildfires in the far north, scientists say, but it could also scrub away heat-trapping methane. In August 2019, something bizarre happened in the far north. A massive thunderstorm produced more than 1,000 flashes of lightning, including a record-breaking bolt that hit just 32 miles from the North Pole. That is hard to imagine, lightning 32 miles from the North Pole, 50 kilometers.
We do not typically get lightning in the winter.
Yeah, it's the closest strike ever recorded to the North Pole. So that's an issue when it comes to increased fires where there is forestry up north. Colorado regulations limiting gas-powered lawn equipment for public properties went into effect this month. Landscapers, apparently, according to Canary Media, are warming up to the cleaner, quieter tools and discovering the perks of electric lawn equipment. We'll have to see about that. There's a link there. Uber is aiding the electric transition, Brian. Bloomberg says that there are now over 230,000 EV drivers that are active on Uber. And that is starting to go up as an S-curve. So it's really taking off and increasing. Yeah. And, if I was an Uber driver, and maybe one day I will be,
you want to go electric?
You want to go electric. It makes total sense. And I see so many people on, I follow Chevy Bolt forums and ID4 because I was thinking about ID4 at one point. And they're all so many Uber drivers, and they put on, like 250, 250,000 miles on their cars and saved untold amounts of money because, that is more money for you. And plus, some of these services will give you extra they'll give you incentives, one-time incentives, and they'll pay you a higher rate. If you wanted electric transportation to book an Uber, sometimes you pay a slight premium for it. So that's, and of course you would want to drive electric anyway because you would not want to breathe all those fumes. So late this past weekend, Senate Democrats say they've successfully blocked the forced sale Postal Service electric vehicles that we talked about on the show here. They tried to get rid of them.
Yes.
They tried to sell them all off. USPS, United States Postal Service, something that I'm sure will be gone soon. They didn't like the fact that they were driving electric vehicles and saving the taxpayer money. So what do they want to do? They tried to get rid of them, apparently. Yeah. Even the chargers, they were going to rip up the parking lots. And
this is a story that's been going on for many years now. They've needed to upgrade their fleet for the U.S. Postal Service. So it's been a very long and bumpy process. But, so far the electric postal vehicles, I guess, are going ahead.
And I've also seen on those same forums that people use them as contracted Postal Service employees in rural settings. So they go around and you have to pay for your own gas while you make more money. That's just like my wife, she works as a social worker. She gets a certain amount of money per month based on a gas car. And it more than covers the bill, the payments and electricity. She's making money off of it by going electric. And yet people at her work are completely confused by the whole thing. They just don't get it. And then she was just at a barbecue with their driver who works as a driver for them at the van. He's this conspiracy guy, and he thinks electric cars are the Satan. And I don't know how many years of her driving it will prove him wrong, but it will happen. China installed 93 gigawatts of solar in May. That's 1 month. 93 gigawatts. That is the peak output of 93 nuclear power plants. That's 1.1 terawatt per year. The world reached its first terawatt of installed solar capacity in March 2022. Took all those years, 70 years from the invention of solar to reach that milestone since the first commercialization of solar cells in 1954, which apparently were mostly used for Brian's calculators. The second terawatt only took 2 years. Now China alone, just China, is doing 1.1 per year at this rate as we speak of installed solar. I don't know how long that can continue. There has to be a limit to it. It's not going to go on forever. China, 90 former coal mines are now operating as solar plants with a capacity of 14 gigawatts there in China. 90. That is a lot. We talk about 1 or 2 here in North America because you have that tie to the power grid, that big fat tie of all that power that needs to go into the power grid. It's already there, so you build your solar plant around there after the coal plant retires. Well, they've done 90 of them. And finally this week, a blimp story for you, Brian. I know how you like blimps. You're dying to go on one. Just like you. Hydrogen.
Let's have the clean energy show blimp ride.
We'll take it to our cruise in Athens. We'll ride China's electric airship / blimp, the AS-700D, is getting ready for delivery this September, which is coming up soon. Already it has 186 orders for these damn blimps that will take 5 years to fill. They can't build the blimps fast enough. They have a maximum speed of 80 kilometers an hour, a 3,100 meter ceiling, so around 10,000 feet, because I don't think they're pressurized cabins, and you want to, if you go beyond 10,000 feet, you won't breathe well. And 10 passengers, including the pilot, are on these things. So it's a small clean energy show cruise. There's the pilot, there's you and me, and we can fit a few more people, I guess. It uses advanced lithium battery e-drive systems. So these are electric, which is why I mentioned them, and a thrust vector cooling system, and can be used in tourism. which is what we would use it for if we had our own blimp.
Yeah.
I don't know where we'd dock it. Maybe you could dock it off the lake, off on your pier or something, and just put it there. So advertising is another way. Of course, you have the Goodyear blimp. You do lots of advertising with that. And security. So it's a quiet little thing that floats around and keeps an eye on the Chinese people, I guess. Exploration, emergency rescue is another thing, and more. So there's all kinds of uses for these things. And China, big country, 186 orders. We'll see how that goes. And maybe blimps will become a thing one day. I know you've always been wondering why they're not.
Yeah.
Because it's a nice, clean way to transport even heavy things sometimes.
We'll be so quiet, too. Imagine a nice, quiet ride like that. It would be amazing. All right. That's it for this week. You can contact us, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. We're Clean Energy Pod on social media. You can find us at patreon.com/cleanenergypod. And we have a merch store that's linked in the show notes. And remember to hit the follow or subscribe button to get these new episodes every week.
Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, and especially our Clean Club executive members, Green Bastard and Brett Rutley, who give quite a bit to be a part of that and get a mention every week. Thank you to all for supporting climate and positive content. We'll see you with a new show in 2 weeks and a repeat next week.
See you next week and in 2 weeks.